Good day to you. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Since we had started this foundation series with the Sermon on the Mount, I thought we would just go ahead and continue with the book of Matthew and follow Jesus in his ministry. So I want us to look at Matthew chapter 8. And at first I want us to look at verses 1 through 4, but we're going to look at about half of chapter 8 here in this lesson, okay? So Matthew chapter 8, we're going to look at verses 1 through 4. Now this is Jesus, when he had come down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him. And behold, a leper came and worshipped him, saying, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Then Jesus put out his hand and touched him, saying, I am willing, be cleansed. Immediately his leprosy was cleansed. And Jesus said to him, See that you tell no one, but go your way, show yourself to the priest, and offer the gift that Moses commanded as a testimony to them. Now, if I had a theme for this first half of Matthew chapter 8, it would be willing. Is Jesus willing? That seems to be the question. Are you willing, Lord, to do these things, to heal me in this case, right? Now, did the leper bring money to Jesus, make an offering to him? Did he buy a book of prayer beads or anything like that? No, he didn't. And Jesus was not asking for money or support. He was helping, he was caring, he was loving for free, right? He didn't do this out of some want to make a material gain or money off of it. Jesus was doing this to show that he was from God and that God loves us, right? Now the crowd here witnessed this, because you notice he's come down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him. So the crowd with Jesus saw him heal the leper. Now lepers were exiled outside of the cities, right? They were supposed to be outside, away from everyone else. And when they came into public areas with people around, they were to be like, they were to cry out, unclean, unclean, so people would let them pass by. They didn't want to touch anybody and accidentally make them sick or share their disease. So it was a very lonely life, very lonely, sad, depressing life. If you were a leper, they had no cure for a leper back then. So here this man is taking a risk. It's very risky. He's coming out in public. He's probably closer to people than he should be. And, the crowd, the people there would probably think this was wrong, and they would probably go, and draw back from him. But notice that Jesus didn't react that way. He says, if you're willing, Lord, you can make me clean. And Jesus is like, I'm willing. Now, I want you to notice something else. Jesus did what would have been unthinkable to these people. He reached out and touched the man. The man may not have been touched for who knows how long, because he has leprosy, and it was a scary thing for people back then, right? But Jesus reached out and touched him. And it's just such a kindness, just such a thoughtful gesture that the Lord is making there. And I just want to mention that because it's so important to this person who probably hasn't been touched in a long time, and at least not in a good way. And here's someone who is willing to help him, not asking anything of him, just willing to help him. Now, Jesus touching the leper now, he was not supposed to do that. That would make you unclean. But Jesus touched him to heal him, to cleanse him. So he was no longer unclean. And of course, Jesus couldn't be unclean. That's just a matter of fact. Now, I want you to notice the exchange they had again. If you are willing, the Lord saying, I'm willing. In all of Jesus' ministry, he was always helping and doing good for people. And just like this leper, we should never feel like we are too sinful or like something is wrong with us that we can't come to the Lord and be cleansed and get that forgiveness. Now, one thing Jesus does tell the leper to do, right? Or he's an ex-leper at this point, but he tells him to follow the law because Jesus always followed the law. That's what they were supposed to do. And he tells him to see the priests and offer the gift he's supposed to offer. Jesus always did what was right, and he told the man to follow the law correctly, to show honor and thanks to God. That was the purpose. He was telling him, make sure you go and give the gift as commanded, as a testimony, and, it's to show honor and thanks to God for this blessing that he was healed. Now, one other thing that Jesus asked of the man, now this is after he cleansed him. He didn't ask anything of him to heal him, right? But afterwards, he's like, hey, go show the priests, do that, give your offering as a testimony. And then he says, don't tell anybody. See that you tell no one. Just go your way, go to the priest, don't tell anybody, don't make a big deal out of this. Well, we kind of know, if you look in Mark's account, Mark chapter 1, verse 45, this is talking about this same leper. However, he went out and began to proclaim it freely and to spread the matter so that Jesus could no longer openly enter the city, but was outside in deserted places, and they came to him from every direction. So Jesus could not escape the fame that came from having the power of God and producing the miracles he produced. But he was still willing to help people. But at the same time, he wanted to keep the fame down. He wanted to be able to do his Father's business as much as he could without all that fame. But as we see, this man went and spread the news far and wide. Now also, we have to remember one thing. While Mark does say that, and I believe that happened, we also have to realize that whole crowd that was with Jesus, they also saw it. So there's all these confirming stories, right? All of this, we saw him heal a leper. We saw him, there's all these stories going about, and they were true. So therefore, that's how we get this with Jesus now has this reputation, as a great healer. Now, and if you remember before the Sermon on the Mount, he was already healing beforehand. He already had this reputation, but this just made it grow even more. So let's read on in Matthew chapter 8. We're going to look at verses 5 through 13. Now, when Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, pleading with him, saying, Lord, my servant is lying at home paralyzed, dreadfully tormented. And Jesus said to him, I will come and heal him. The centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof, but only speak a word, and my servant will be healed. For I also am a man under authority, having soldiers under me. And I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard it, when he heard what this man said, he marveled and said to those who followed, Assuredly, I say to you, I have not found such great faith, not even in Israel. And I say to you that many will come from east and west, and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, but the sons of the kingdom will be cast out into outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then Jesus said to the centurion, Go your way, and as you have believed, so let it be done for you. And his servant was healed that same hour. So some things I want us to notice here. First, Jesus enters the town, and immediately this centurion is coming to him. Did he have people waiting and watching for Jesus? Had he heard that Jesus was in town or coming to town? Jesus already had a reputation for healing. Now, I want us to think too about the fact that this is a Roman centurion, not a Jewish person, right? Is there some risk to his reputation that he's coming to Jesus? You know, the Romans tended not to look very favorably on the Jews or on, well, probably not on a lot of people they conquered, but I remember especially that they did not look very favorably on the Jews. They thought they were weird with their one God and all this stuff. And, you know, you have to look at the world the way it was then. Most people had pantheons of gods, right? You had the Greek pantheon, and the Roman pantheon was really the same ones, basically. I'm not going to get into the little details. You had the Norse pantheon, you had the Egyptian pantheon. I'm sure there's some I'm not thinking of, probably the Persians and others. Indians, we know that the Indians have a huge number of gods. If they, what's their religion? I'm missing the name of it right now. Hindu. In Hindu, they have a number of gods, of idols. So, and of course, in the surrounding area around Israel, and even unfortunately inside Israel, there were people who still worshipped idols and the Baals and, you know, all of that. We can read all that in the Old Testament. So, but here, this guy, I just wonder if he's risking his reputation a little bit. Will it hurt his reputation with his men? You know, again, the soldiers probably did not think a lot of the Jews. And here this centurion is. This is a commander. He's a big deal. But I want us to notice something else. He's seeking help for his servant, not for himself. This man sounds like a very unusual man. He sounds like he is, I don't know, a cut above a lot of others. He's seeking help for his servant, not himself, not a relative, just for his servant. It doesn't say slave, so we're not saying slave, but we're saying a servant, someone who serves in his household. They may or may not be a slave. In Rome and in the Roman culture, there were a lot of slaves, and they would have just called them servants a lot of time as well. So there's no way to be sure if this was a free man who was working or if this was a slave who was working. Nonetheless, this man cared for his servant regardless. So he's probably a pretty good guy to care for his servant this much that he would go to Jesus and risk some, I will say, some unpopularity to do that. Now, again, I want us to notice, did the centurion offer money to Jesus? Did Jesus ask for any payment? Again, Jesus is not chasing material wealth. That's not what his ministry is about. And we need to compare that to the ministries we see today. Are people chasing material wealth, or are they trying to save your soul and help you in your relationship with the Lord? Now, this centurion, he is a Gentile, but he knows of Jesus. He recognizes Jesus' holiness, and he says, I'm not deserving that you come to my house. So he knows something about God and this holiness that he sees in Jesus. He recognizes his own unworthiness. He's asking humbly for this. He is not coming forward demanding this, but he is humbly asking. He recognizes Jesus' authority, that Jesus can banish this illness with a word. And that would have been surprising to a lot of the people there, that he would say something like that. But he's a military man. He knows about the chain of command. He knows Jesus is in charge. Jesus has authority over these things. He recognizes that, and he says, I too am a man under authority. He recognizes Jesus has authority under God, right? But he recognizes that he has that. And that's, he's recognizing Jesus the man. I'm not saying he necessarily knows that Jesus is the Messiah and the Christ, but he sees Jesus as someone who is with authority and can wield God's power. Now, I do want to clarify one point. My translation is the New King James Version. Other versions may read this a little differently, but Jesus was not amazed or surprised as the translations tend to say. What it is he admired the man's faith. Admire means to look at with pleasure and respect. We might admire a rose garden or pretty scenery or good food, and we might say, "Oh, that's wonderful. It's great. I've never had such good stuff," right? So we're being very positive and we're marveling in it in that way, in that we enjoy it, but we're not surprised or stunned or, Jesus knows people's heart, right? But Jesus was very pleased with the man's faith. And the Greek word there really means that Jesus showed enthusiasm at the centurion's statement of faith. He was boasting about this man's statement of faith. He was commending him. So Jesus commends the centurion's faith and compares that to Israel. And we know that at that time, Israel was being found lacking. And he said, Gentiles from all over the world will come and be at God's table, be in heaven. Yet God's chosen people will be cast out. Now, this doesn't mean all of them. This doesn't mean all Jews are cast out. There are Christian Jews, but it's just sad when the chosen heir, the people who were chosen to begin with, it's sad when they are not fit to inherit from their Father. And that's the whole idea of Jesus' statement. They will be cast out and they will not be there. And it's a sad thing. And it's a warning. It's a warning to the Jews as well. Now notice that Jesus says to the centurion, "As you have believed, so let it be." He did not say anything about healing, but the servant was healed. Jesus is always willing to help, but this is kind of a unique account of how he helped this centurion's servant. It wasn't even the centurion, it was his servant. Now let's look at Matthew chapter 8, verses 14 and 15. Now when Jesus had come into Peter's house, he saw his wife's mother lying sick with a fever. So he touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she arose and served them. Realize, in this case again, that there's no crowd to applaud. Jesus did not ask anything of Peter's mother-in-law. There was no money requested or anything like that. Jesus touched her and healed her out of kindness. Jesus was willing. Now, she did arise and serve them, yes, but it doesn't say, "Well, I'm going to heal you so you can do something for me." That wasn't it. He healed her out of kindness, right? Does the kindness of Jesus encourage us to serve him? This is one of those examples where, if Jesus heals you, if Jesus is doing good for you, you should be encouraged to serve him, right? Or do we think that we deserve his salvation on our own accord? Do we think we have earned it, that we are so good that, of course, God gives us salvation? I just warn that is the wrong attitude. Jesus bringing us salvation, dying on the cross for us, that should encourage us to serve him. It should encourage us in a very sincere, genuine, heartfelt way to try to help others come to that same salvation, to see Jesus as the Lord, to see him as he is. He is our Savior, our King. He's our high priest. He's all these things. So are we willing to serve the Lord by serving his people? Because that's what we should be doing. So I want to remind us here we're at the end of this half of Matthew chapter 8. I want to remind us that Jesus is willing. If we will come to him, Jesus is willing. God always intends good for us, and he's not asking for money, material wealth. He's not asking for anything from you except to come to him. Let him help you and help you to become a better person, to be more like Jesus and to follow him. And then all these other things, they will happen naturally as you learn and grow to be more like the Lord. So in closing, I want us to see that Jesus is willing. God always intends good for us. We can put our faith and trust in the Lord. He is on our side. We are the humble, normal people of this world, and Jesus cares about all of us. Place your faith in Jesus and keep it in Him. Jesus saves. He is the only way to heaven. So I want to thank you for listening. Hope you have a wonderful day. May God bless you and keep you safe. And remember, God loves you.